Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Great. So we've been going back to back, so I thought we could start with a deep breath. A couple collective breaths to just center and try to integrate some of the material you've already been learning. So deep inhale. You can let it out with an audible sigh if you want. Couple more. Inhale. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Thank you. So today we're talking about love, sex, and psychedelics, and I'm helping moderate. I know Dan just did brief introductions, but I want to invite all of us to do a little bit longer introduction and then share some talking points if you have, and then we'll get to questions. So, yeah. Who wants to go first? Down at the end, Caitlin.
Sure, no problem. So happy to be with all of you guys this weekend and look forward to getting to know you better in a small venue like this, and with after parties and everything, we'll have lots of time to share, and I look forward to that. So I'm Caitlin Robertson. I'm going to introduce myself and the relationships that I'm in. I'm a wife and a mother of 4 kids. I like to train for triathlons in my spare time, and I'm building a company right now to try to address the root drivers of chronic pain, specifically the trauma underlying it. And today on this panel, I'm really hoping to just show up as my authentic self and share my own personal story of healing and the healing journey that I feel like in some ways just at the beginning of, and in other ways I've put in years of hard work and decades to really let go of the trauma that I absorbed from our culture, my family, the religion I was raised in. So I look forward to sharing more about that.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cory Fiset, and yes, really thrilled to be here. We are from Chile, Canada. So this is on. Can you hear me? And it's nice to be here in the warmth. My introduction would be the marriage that my husband and I were in. We were married almost 25 years, and it was around that time we were introduced to psychedelics. Personally, I had one of the most life-changing experiences I've ever had. Sure, let's try that. Oh, that's better. Thank you. Personally, and then the experience we had together, it saved our relationship, saved our marriage, and there's a whole lot more around that I'm sure we'll talk about here on the panel. But that's why I'm here, and we doing the work we do with couples and psychedelics has been transformative. So look forward to sharing that with everyone here today.
Testing. And I am Jay Fiset, obviously my better half here. I am honored to be here. This has been one of the most spectacular 3 years of our lives. We are the parents to 2 boys. Our 17-year-old graduated high school today and was texting like mad. So I just need to share that because that was not the easiest journey, to put it mildly. So psychedelics, awesome. Graduated teenager, better. And I think just the core thing that I want to communicate or to share is that as challenging as things may get in a relationship, that there's a pathway and there's a possibility, and that it could be better than your wildest dreams. And the most significant thing I can say about it is that our journey with psychedelics and serving and supporting other couples is that the scale of what is meaningful and the scale of loving and being loved continues to break, because what we thought was possible, we kept exceeding. And that would be what I would hope for each of you.
I'll try this one. We'll see if it goes out. I might take it back. But I'm Kate Kincaid. I'm a licensed therapist in Tucson, Arizona. And yeah, I love working with relationship therapy, especially queer people, ethically non-monogamous people. I'm kink and BDSM and sex worker allied. So those are the people that I work with. And then I also do psychedelic assisted therapy with ketamine right now. Mostly individuals, but some couples work. And I want to do more because I think it's an awesome opportunity because it helps temper the limbic system. You can hear things differently. You can say things differently. So it's not all roses. I mean, it's about connecting, but it's about really sharing who you are as an individual and seeing your partner as a separate individual than you, and like, how can you come together? And I think that these medicines are a great way to help people do that work. So I'm really excited to be talking about this and to hear from you. I'm also a mother of two. I have an 8-month-old and a 3-year-old. So I love that we're all parents. I think parenting is super psychedelic, like constantly, especially toddlers and babies.
17-year-olds.
And 17, I don't know yet, but I'm sure. So yeah, we can just, does anybody else want to share some points to start or start with questions? You have a point to share?
I meant sure to questions.
Oh.
I meant sure to questions, but I think the point to share, and I think it's been articulated already, is that this is a two-sided coin. Is that there is beauty, spectacular intimacy, connection that is transcendent, that will heal your heart and soul, and it will also very likely uncover some of the challenges and the difficulties that have been well buried, that have been well hidden, that you may not want to face. And if you are going to do this as a couple and face it as a couple, you just gotta deep breath in and be willing to face both, or I would say stick with the status quo.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about your retreats and like how do you help people work through that, or like as difficult materials coming up, or like what does it look like? How do you do it?
Do you have that one?
And I just want to add, he's more the public speaker than I am. That's a good question. So, we work with couples in all different stages of their relationships, from the dating 11 months to married 30 to 33 years and everything in between. Traditionally, they are looking to connect. They're looking to take their relationship to another level. They're looking to deal with, to do some clearing, to look at past hurts and the stuff we carry in a primary relationship. How do we communicate that without the rub, without the friction, without all the past coming into the conversation? Any of you that are in a primary relationship of any sort, I think for any amount of time, you probably know what I'm talking about. Something happens, or there's hurt, and anything from our past trauma, it just all comes into the relationship. And most of us in our conscious state, myself included, I couldn't have those conversations with him. We fell into a rut where we would start the conversation about fill in the blank, the one thing that we all kind of tiptoe around, or the pink elephant in the room, and we would both end up agitated, angry, frustrated, and going our separate ways, and then hurt feelings, and then try to come at it. It's just a cycle that perpetuates itself. So in working with couples, what we find, people who have these experiences together, the amygdala offline, they're able to come with the empathy, the open heart, and have those conversations in a way that they feel heard, understood, respected. I can say what I need to say, and I don't have all the stuff around it, and neither does he. So that's been a phenomenal experience for our relationship, and watching other couples go through that process that just had no idea that was even possible.
If I could just add briefly to that, because you'd asked about in the retreats, is the primary sort of starting offering that we came up with was something called a connection experience. It's not like a full-on retreat. It's, if you were to think of it, there's a 5-day lead up, which is intention, connection, what I want to give, what I want to receive, what I want to share. Starting the flirting process again, remembering some of the high points. So we do a fair chunk of work for 5 days leading into this space of gratitude, appreciation, and articulating what it is that we want to express first time out of the gate. Then it's a single evening journey that is guided and supported in terms of the starting point with us together. They have their own private room. We go check on them occasionally in terms of text and those sorts of things. Then there's a 5-day process afterwards. So I think the heart of what I heard your question to be is, how do we support them with that? It's really 5 days of intentional planning about what we are going to make this experience be, about what we want to talk about what needs to come forth for us to have an experience of intimacy, which may or may not include sexuality in any way, shape, or form. What we're finding is that most couples are 2 connection experiences in before the real sensual, sexual, fun, entertainments, fireworks stuff happens. And it's just literally, we say this all the time, the medicine will give you what you need, not necessarily what you want. And almost every time that starts with the conversations that get started 5 days earlier that they spend 9 hours having that night.
I love that. Beautiful.
And they're definitely non-specific amplifiers. So for people that come into this work in couples therapy or even individually, and they're expecting, the fireworks and the mystical experience and the divine orgasm and then they get into it and it starts to unveil or surface really difficult material that is not at all on the spectrum of pleasure. I just want to give hope, to those people too, that it is a process, and healing our sexuality is a lifelong journey for a lot of us, and it takes time and patience, and a lot of patience with self, actually, and a lot of self acceptance and love, and that comes in layers. Yeah.
We're in that boat. Does it ever?
Yeah, I say sometimes psychedelic experiences help illuminate the path and the work that needs to be done, but it doesn't just fix things. It doesn't instantly fix a marriage or a sexual relationship or your own sexuality, but it can help you see where the work is and where you need to go and get some messages about next steps.
And I think it can be incredibly, I like that analogy of shining the light on it. And I've been working on shining the light on my own identity and really coming into that for the first time in, decades. But I also think in a coupled relationship, it's important to understand that it can be incredibly disruptive. Like even a really good experience can disrupt the system that you're used to navigating. And then a difficult experience can be disruptive in its own way. But especially as people are uncovering their true self, then you have to bring that self back into the relationship. And that can be very rocky road. And so, yeah, shout out to my life partner of 18 years who, walked this journey with me. And when we went into our MDMA session, we thought that we were trying to heal our relationship. And it's true. I mean, we were, but we didn't realize how much sexual trauma that I had from my childhood. And it's taken years and a lot of therapy to, begin to work through those layers.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, what I'm hearing all of you talk about is these things can come up, and then it's how do you integrate them into your life? How does it impact the relationship outside of these peak experiences or medicine spaces? So what do you think about that, like for yourselves personally or the clients that you work with?
Well, man, that's a long conversation. We could be here all day. But I think that the most significant for us was that the conversations and the shift in the fabric of both our time and our environment had to change. Like quite literally, we'd been together when we had the first experience, basically 25 years married and 10 years prior. And we always had a bedroom. It's like, that's the place where we go sleep. It was our bedroom. Shortly after our first couple of experiences, it's like the bedroom transformed into a sanctuary. The TV got turned off, the massage table got brought in, the lights changed, the candles changed, the ritual of going to bed at the same time so that we could connect and actually have the conversations about where were we at and what was going on. It shifted from a necessary mechanic to the thing that we looked forward to most in our day was, how do we finish this, get to the sanctuary, be with one another, and continue the healing, like, which had, in one sense, nothing to do with the journeys in the medicine and everything to do with the journeys in the medicine.
Thank you. Anyone else want to add anything about integration for yourself or people you work with?
I think all I would add to that is, and it's been mentioned here a few times already, integration is key. And one of the questions we get often is, we'll go have this great experience and then go home, and then what? Then what do? We get back to the same old. And what's fascinating about medicine, the psychedelics used as intentional medicine, is, I would even venture to say, even if you didn't do something right away with integration, you're forever changed. Like, you're not, it's the rewiring, like something happens and things shift and things evolve and things change day to day, even without the intentional integration, which is super important. But just even recognizing the beauty and the power and the healing that the medicine has in our internal wiring is fascinating to me. But integration, absolutely, for couples especially, because then we head back to our lives. Now what?
And with integration with sex therapy in particular, be prepared for the shame hangover, the vulnerability hangover that you may feel. And, building the supports around that, like, who do I have in my community and my immediate circles who can really support me and remind me of who I am, even when I want to tuck in and hide and, wish I had never seen behind the curtain, wish I didn't know, that will continue to call you back and remind you of who you are.
Nice. One question I'm thinking of is, what about people that maybe want to journey alone or with a guide or a facilitator or a therapist? Any advice about, like, what to do with erotic material or energy that comes up in those spaces when you're not with your primary partner or you don't have a primary partner? What can you do?
I think this is a really important topic for the whole psychedelic community to be more open about talking about, right? Because if you have sexual trauma, chances are in a group setting, you're, the multiple protectors and in IFS language, internal family systems, you have all these different parts that come out and come online. And when I journey in a group, my sexuality is way offline. It is under lock and key. One time in an experience, I saw this fierce warrior dancing around this thing, and I saw it out in front of me, and she had this spear in her hand, and she was very primal, and she was like, in this tribal dance around this thing that I didn't know what it was at first. And as I approached and got closer and closer, I realized it was my sexuality, and it was under lock and key, really shut down. And that continued to be my experience in any group setting, that I couldn't even, in your mind, approach it with curiosity. That it was one time I tried to just like, let me go to the young girl, let me go to the teen, and she ran, and I tried, wait, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm curious. I just want to, have a conversation with you. And it was like, the closer I tried to go after her, the further she ran. So yeah, I think that it's been recommended to me to work like one-on-one with a therapist. And I think that, then we have the conversations about, what's safe. And, so maybe 2 therapists to 1 or a recorded session, but ultimately in any of these journeys, we just have to feel safe, right? We have to feel safe in our own body, and we have to be in a safe setting. And our bodies know, like, even if you're in a wonderful, I was in a group of amazing healers and psychologists and people that I deeply trusted, and that wasn't even a place that I could even go in my mind.
I just want to echo the additional support and therapy. So for us, we're virtually exclusively with couples. So I don't have a great response to what happens individually. But what I can tell you is that both for us in the beginning of some uncovering of surprise, we hired a fantastic therapist who we still see, who we absolutely dearly love, who we continue to refer our clients to when it comes time for them to do their individual work. And I think that if you're going to enter this space and play with it, you need a team. Like this isn't a one-off, I got a great shaman, or this isn't, it's like, oh, I know Cory and Jay, we can go do that as a couple. It's like, this is a team of support and resources that is necessary to serve and support and have people navigate their very unique path through.
And all I would add to that is definitely someone you trust. You brought up about internal family system and parts, and I've been exploring the same work. So it's interesting you mentioned that. Similar kind of stuff, like my one part Raven, she's when Jay and I have journeyed together, so he's guided me in a journey, I've guided him in a journey. And what's interesting is the last time, speaking about the sexuality, this happened, there are a couple of my parts where I hoped to have a curiosity, conversation with and explore a trauma that I had remembered from back when I was 17, which showed itself about a year ago. So I've been doing some work on these parts since discovering that trauma, repressed trauma. No clue that it was there and so it's opened the door for all of the possibilities in a journey and what comes online when I'm with the medicine. But anyway, with him, those parts, there's certain parts that would not come forward. It was like they were hiding behind chairs and under the bed, and I'm like, where are they all? And it was partially the man I trust most in the world guiding my journey, which is why I chose him. But because there's some of those parts don't want to come forward with him there, that it didn't happen. So I think, in that respect, if you're looking at something, make sure it's somebody that you can just really be in that space with and allow whatever to come forward without any concern or second thoughts. And then your journey will be probably incredibly healing and powerful in that way.
That's good advice.
Mm-hmm.
I also love IFS.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I've seen it personally and with clients. Like, you really can't blow past those parts. Like, you have to engage them, you have to get them on board, you have to negotiate, work with them, you have to feel safe. So yeah.
I also just want to name too that, and I probably should have said this in my introduction, my training was in early childhood development and psychology, and I've studied childhood trauma for most of my life. And usually when I talk, I'm talking about the ACE scoring and secondary trauma, and not on the topic of sex at all. So this is the first time that I'm publicly talking about sexual trauma. And you guys are a friendly audience, so this is good. But yeah, regarding the early childhood traumas, I think that and the topic of sex, a lot of people assume that sexual trauma looks a certain way, that it's either direct child abuse or we know later life experiences that are really, really difficult to overcome. But sexual trauma can also be from the messages that we were given as children about ourselves, about our sexuality. And that's where most of my trauma is embedded, is the messages I was given around your sexuality is dangerous. You will cause your Christian brothers to stumble if you wear a skirt that is too short, and if you dress a certain way, if you flirt a certain, how you appear in the world, how you present yourself will cause someone to sin, and sin will cause them to be separated from God, and on and on and on, right? And so that it was subtle little messages, but when I look back on it, it was a clear message of you are dangerous. The way that you came into this world, the way that you are, is a danger to society. And then you don't feel safe in your own body. And that's a form, of trauma where very hardwired in my brain was you go from pleasure straight into shame. And shame and pleasure are very tightly wired. And I just want to name that because I think that a lot of people will come into these psychedelic experiences, even go on a retreat and have these expectations of like, if I can just access pleasure in this new way, if I can try a substance that enhances it, in some way, that will be the key to unlock this orgasm I'm waiting for. And that's not the case if you have trauma that's tied with pleasure itself. If pleasure itself is hardwired in your brain as bad, that's very, very difficult to overcome.
Yeah, and I think, just living in our culture, like we all have those messages from movies, whether our parents were saying them directly, like there's a lot of shame about sexuality and pleasure in our culture. So here in America, at least.
I was just going to point out, and I know you've had more conversations with our female clients, but one of the consistent things that we hear in terms of the follow-up coaching and integration pieces is people, and both men and women, but a little stronger for women, is that things like it's the first time and that I felt utterly and completely whole or complete or accepting or loving of my body, regardless of shape, time, size, all of those pieces. And it is one of the things, going back to the orgasm element, which is we're just real straight with them, like, don't expect one. Like that is not even what we're doing. Like, this is about connection. And I think one of the greatest things that we have helped couples with is to shift what intimacy means. In that, literally people have been with us for 6 months and it's like, you know what? It was just the last time that we actually had an orgasm and we didn't care and we don't care anymore. And it's not why we connect and make love and do our thing. So that redefinition, I think, is unbelievably important in terms of redefining this idea of the pleasure, the shame, and all those pieces. When it becomes this idea of, when the destination gets set aside, this idea of I am most my true self, in terms of the intentional, I'm most my true self, and to be witnessed and to witness the one I love most in the universe as her true self, from my true self. That's the transitionary piece that is the experience of being most loved and loving of our lives.
Well said, Jay. And adding to religion, growing up Roman Catholic, school, Sunday school, church every Sunday, church every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. I don't know. We went all the time to church. I have aunts that are Roman Catholic nuns. My mother was in the convent and came out, decided she was not for her, thank goodness. But so I grew up too with that shame, like the shame connected to especially pleasure. It just, not only was it just wasn't discussed. And so in my conversations with women, is so many women in similar situations where we're just blocked, we're stuck and we're numb, and we don't know how to access that part of ourselves that is allowed to experience pleasure and sexual satisfaction and joy, and then not have the hangover after, and sit with that and be with that, be at home in our bodies and feel sensual in our bodies and feel just an ease and a real beautiful space. It's just not typically normal and natural and easy for women to access that space. And that makes it really difficult then in a primary relationship, not just, even when you're not in a relationship, but just being at home in our bodies. How do we allow ourselves to be in that place?
And that's the promise of psychedelics, right? Like,
right.
Not just rewiring the hard ruts in our brain around shame. My first MDMA experience, I will never forget, because I looked at myself naked in the mirror and there was no shame. And as a woman in this culture, to be able to look at yourself without shame is transformative. That's an incredible experience that I wish for every woman. But they are also a really somatic experience. So Dan wanted us to have fun with this. And, psychedelics do, not only do they give us that opportunity to remap wrong messages, but they are somatic, they get us in our bodies. And that's where the sex work around this, gets really interesting, to feel things that we haven't felt before and to have a more embodied, whether it's grounded or sensual experience, is very fun for a lot of people.
Yeah, I love that. That what you did with the mirror I'm wondering if any of you have more practices or like practical advice like that maybe somebody could do either if they're doing it alone or with the partner. Are there any practices to get more embodiment and to connect with their body, to connect with their pleasure?
Please tell that story. Please.
Okay, you wanted fun, Dan? All right.
I'm going to get in shit for that later, just so we were perfectly clear.
We promise we'd show up as our authentic selves. That means bringing our full stories to the stage.
I think this whole thing is also, that I talk about the Catholic and just being very tight and restricted my whole life around anything sexual. And then it was not talked about after, of course. So we've discussed with people we've worked with, and what has been really healing for us is, so yes, dating, courting 10 years, married 25 years, like our whole life together. I only could have an orgasm one way. Like one way. It was like one way.
Highly reliable. Only one way. 35 years.
Pretty much.
Please, another way. Please, just one more way. Okay, I'll be quiet now.
And anyway, so fast forward through the use of intentional, it's always been intentional for us, medicine. I have now been able to orgasm 6 different ways. Much to my surprise, I had no idea even 5 of those existed. So, but I used to, watch movies and read things and think, am I broken, or is there something wrong, or like, what's the matter with me that's not even, and for many women, orgasm isn't even on the table. So I thought I was lucky that I had the one way, right? Like, that's not bad. I'm winning. And for many women, I was surprised to hear like they've never had an orgasm their entire life. Like, it's just not possible for them. So to go from 0 or 1 to 6 different ways, it was like, even one time it was like, whoa, wait a minute, what was that? What just happened?
Like, how in the hell?
Do that again. Okay. Anyway, so that's been beautiful, and that's been real, like, life-changing for me, and a healing in my body, and a whole transformation internally for me in terms of what pleasure, sexuality, sensuality, what I'm capable of, and what I know. I feel if I'm capable of it, I think any woman is. So that there's hope for every woman to have that experience in some way, shape, or form.
I just need to say this really loud.
There,
and clear.
I did it.
I know. I'm so proud of you. Because we would have couples ask us this, and I'm like, tell them. Tell them. Anyway, so I admire that. Anyway, here's my point to that, though. Oh, yes. I'm just like, would you have ever thought? Anyway, but here's the thing that I just really want to say about this is that the orgasms followed presence and love. Okay, there is absolutely, I got shivers just 35 years together. And a part of me, I mean, we can joke about this, but 35, as a husband and a man who loves her, feel a little inadequate about that. Suddenly, there's 5 more ways. Like, seriously, I genuinely do. But the part that I want everyone to understand here, and that the beauty of the medicine and the beauty of the ritual that we created, is that didn't happen in days or weeks or months. That happened over a span of 3 years, being dedicated to our presence and the expression of love. Those 6 ways just happen to be a cool, it's like God saying, life is hard, have some candy. It's like, I kind of think that's what orgasms are, right? Anyway, life is hard, have some candy. You get more candy. Anyway, but to go back to the point, it wasn't a physical mechanic. It was a spiritual presence and dedication to each other that made space for that.
Yeah, it's a commitment and a practice, and it's like a long game instead of instant fix, which I think people are understanding more now. But I think a lot of people coming to this work, at least my experience with clients, they're suffering and they're looking for a quick fix, and it's kind of disheartening to remind people that it's not. It's work and commitment and practice. So, but I love that.
And I do think that sexual healing is some of the hardest work ever. Our sexuality is our most tender vulnerability as human beings, right? And there was a period of time in my life where I just thought, the work was so hard that I'd rather be asexual. Like, I'd rather just not experience pleasure than to have to do the therapy that was so tender and vulnerable and hard work, and left me feeling, 1 hour session with a therapist wiped me out for the rest of the day. And is sexual pleasure really worth that? Is it really worth this much work? And so, I just want to name that it's a commitment to bring every part of ourselves back in, right? That our sexuality is really important because it is, I've been told, our creative energy, our life force, all these beautiful things. And I think emotions, crying and sadness and anger, every part of the human experience is important. And when we cut off those parts, we're missing out and we're losing being our full selves. But I learned last weekend at the Queering Psychedelics conference that our greatest need really is belonging, and we will cut off parts of ourselves to belong, including, our sexual selves. And so when it comes to our identities and, who we're attracted to and what we feel inside our own bodies, if that's not appreciated in our system, either culturally or in our marriage or whatever, we will shame those parts of ourselves away just to belong. And so again, it's a process of layers of bringing back in. And, I'm really, really thankful that I'm in a partnership that has encouraged me to be the meest me that I can be. You drove me crazy saying that for a long time. And then watching him accept me fully as I am, as I've, for the first time in my life, publicly said, my attraction is for humanity. I am sexually attracted to both men and women. And wow, that took years to be able to say that and not feel tremendous shame about that. And then to have a partner just love me as I am. And also that doesn't have to mean anything different for our partnership. It can mean a lot of different things. And I guess, shout out to Queering Psychedelics. That conference was amazing. Shakruna was the host of it. And it just really touched on what's possible for the human experience. And since I'm, a nut about human development and flourishing, I do think, we're stepping in the right direction, a world that is much more loving and accepting of our deep, deep complexity, the beauty in all of our diversity. It's exciting.
I have a fun question. I don't know if we can even talk about this. It just came to me, but can you talk about the differences between the different medicines and using them for embodiment practices or sexual connection or?
Can we?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. All right. By the way, that may have just been you break the law, not me. So I'm teasing. So we use exclusively, we're very diligent about this in terms of the uses for the connection experience. And we use exclusively in pathogens and entactogens, mainly because they're more reliable and less of a non-specific amplifier than our classics of LSD and psilocybin and all those sorts of things. So our faves, and I'll just say it loud and clear, Yeah, exactly. Our faves are 3-MMC, which is a beautiful heart-opening medicine that allows you to really genuinely communicate and talk. That we use for a process called attunement. And the attunement process, if you were to think of intention, setting, I like sustainability, I like that addition. If you were to think of setting an intention on speed is what we would call attunement. And that particular medicine is one of the most beautiful and spectacular for that process. And that's where we start each time. And then we move, and it's funny, it's heart opening, but you can still think, and it's clear, and you can articulate, and you've got access, and the amygdala takes a little break. And some of the most meaningful conversations that have healed our hearts and souls have been on that medicine. And then we add MDMA, which sort of shifts from the head to the heart to the body, and depending upon what folks do and where they're at in their stages, that could be just long, more conversation, that could be touch, that could be cuddling, that could be any of those pieces, and it could be just fireworks. That occurs as well. But those are faiths. Would you add anything to that, huh?
I would say the experience of MDMA just puts me in touch with my true self and my inner healer, and I'm just there. It's the most reliable medicine for me to connect with my body.
And we've experimented with a bunch of non-specific amplifiers as well, but it is consistently less reliable for us.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add, Caitlin?
A couple things. I do like psilocybin for how somatic it is, and MDMA. I mean, it just turns me into a cuddle puddle. So yeah, for a lot of people, MDMA, is non-sexual, and it's hard to get their sexual side online with that. And one thing I'd say about that too is that you are deeply, deeply heart to heart connecting with your partner in that experience. And lines of consent can be really blurred within yourself, within your partnership, because you do feel such deep, loving, I will go to the ends of the earth for this person. I love them with everything in me. And that can be really tricky if you've already had issues around consent in your relationship or in previous relationships. And so, yeah, in the time we have left, we probably should touch on that too.
Actually, Kate, we're gonna cut it a little short.
Oh, we're going to cut it short.
Yeah.
Okay.
The clock in front of us is not the clock.
No, right. Sorry. Can we have a round of applause for their vulnerability?